Sponsors for Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation are Podcast Academy Online. Learn to podcast like an adult, built for the busy entrepreneur or the hobbyist. Visit our membership community at podcastacademyonline.com. And Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout, the easiest, best way to promote and track your podcast. Your show could be online, listed in all of the major directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Get your $20 Amazon gift card for signing up. The link is in the show notes. Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. This podcast was created for the boomer woman leaving corporate, and now you're looking to reinvent yourself, become an author, an entrepreneur, a podcaster. Well, each episode will leave you with clarity. You will come away with the yes, I can and yes, I will reinvent myself mindset. So come on, let's do this. I'm your host, Margot Levette. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another episode, Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. I'm Margot Levette here with a very special and, let me say, timely episode today. Let me get started. And as I move along, you will understand why and what I'm speaking of. Today's guest is an expert in mergers, acquisitions, bankruptcy. She's a certified public accountant with oversight of a $1.4 billion corporate account. I didn't stumble. I did stumble, but that's a lot of money.
Yes.
Over that amount of money. Yet she had, that's the operative word here, she had a secret in her personal life. She was on the brink of financial ruin. Keep that in mind, okay? Let me welcome Sheri Berke. Sheri, I am so glad you're here, and you are going to shed so much light on what happens. You are an expert working in that industry, moving money, touching money, almost making money, Let's go ahead and just run it off the printing press. Seriously. But then here you were. And I just how does that happen to yourself, to athletes, singers, songwriters? The list goes on.
Oh, I am so delighted to be here with you today, Margot. And boy, I have to tell you, there was a point that I asked myself, how did that happen? And I had been trained, as you mentioned, in accounting and finance, and I was doing that for other people's businesses. But I hadn't necessarily been trained in how to appropriately apply it to my own affairs. And so much of what we learn about money, we learn watching how our parents dealt with it, unless we get formal training. And there is so little of training about how to use money. Do you use debt? Do you not use debt? Do you save? Do you not save? What do you do? And I didn't really have that information straight out of college, but someone taught me how to leverage credit. And I used it to satisfy every whim that I hadn't been able to satisfy before. Mm-hmm. I, was a starving student in school, and I'd made my own clothes in high school, and even my first professional work wardrobe. And when I had an opportunity to go shopping on that plastic, I was off and running. Now, there is nothing wrong with having debt if you use it properly. But I really hadn't been taught how to do that. I hadn't been taught how to make that debt work for me. And I was just using it on things I had nothing to show for. And in an economic downturn, not the last one, but the one before that, I found myself without a job. Mm-hmm. I had great skills, but the company that I had worked for, that I had been responsible for that budget that you'd mentioned, was in deep trouble. And they were doing what so many companies do in those situations, is cutting their expenses. And I found myself without a job. And it was difficult that there wasn't other jobs to replace that 6-figure salary at the time. And I had a mountain of personal debt and few assets to show for it. And I just didn't know what to do. Wow. And I found myself just curled up one day in that, ball on the floor, crying, that proverbial ugly cry. I just didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. But I wound up saying, okay, nobody's going to get me out of this but myself. And so I had to look around and see what I could do. How could I use the skills that I had? And who could I find to help me figure out what to do?
Now, Sheri, you know what? You just hit the nail on the head where so many people are today. So once you're curled up on the ball and on the floor and you come to yourself, what you're going to have to do, you sought help. What are your skill set? Did you upgrade your skill set at all during that time? Because you come packing with a heavy portfolio. So for the person that's listening now and they are off the floor, they know, okay, I have to do something else. Take us on further. Yeah, I had to break in. Take us on further on that journey. What did that really, really look like? And what will that look like for the person that's doing that right now?
Well, I had to take a real hard look at what my circumstances were. What was it like right here, right now? I had skills. I wasn't finding a job. And I thought, well, what if I use those skills to start a consulting business? And so I started to look for people who could show me, how do I move from the corporate world into a business as an individual, as an entrepreneur? And I found a couple of people and they were more than happy to share their knowledge with me. And I did a couple of workshops, and then I started using the resources I had, which were the people I knew. Mm. And I started to reach out and ask them, who did they know who needed this kind of assistance? And then I found groups of people who, and when I was doing this, it was before some of the digital tools, and it was a lot of it in person. And what I didn't realize, that I was in fact starting to do some of what I've discovered is the process of reinvention. And that I have, since in creating the Reinvention Playbook, are the primary keys, the 3 primary keys of moving from wherever you are to somewhere else.
Wow. And that is that just your financial outlook, or is that every part of moving from one spot to the next? Those three keys.
It's absolutely everything. Because what I didn't mention earlier is that my fiance had also walked out on me at the same time everything else came crashing down. And so I was totally bereft. And not only had I lost my job, I'd lost the love of my life. And so here I was having to deal with grief and loss and money issues. And it was just all kind of wound up in this big ball of stuff, like so many are today.
Yes. Yes.
And it's so it doesn't matter whether it's loss of a job or loss of a love, or it's money situation. It's still you sometimes have to stop and grieve. You have to feel the feelings, and then it's also kind of checking in with the higher source that you have, mm-hmm. and leaning into that and finding a support group, you know, whether it's close friends, whether it's a networking group, whether it's a community or a tribe that's doing the same kind of thing, but it's finding help. And the probably one of the most challenging pieces in all of this, what I call the second step, is knowing where you want to go. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like when you leave the house to go to the grocery store, you know exactly where you're going. And so you either know the route or you can get some help in getting directions to get there.
Wow, that's important. Know where you want to go. You've mm-hmm. grieved, you've suffered loss, and you're off of the floor. Now you have to get some help to know where you want to go. That's key. That's very important. Instead of just circling around. Do you think for the people that don't sit down long enough to evaluate themselves, what's happened, and really determine where they want to go, that's only going to prolong them being able to reinvent themselves? Yeah. And you said something really important off mic about us approaching things and money, and I would venture to say even life, out of a mindset of scarcity, a mindset of abundance. And I want to leave enough time for you to really dive into that, because a lot of people are not talking about that, and that affects mm-hmm. everything. You obviously are a woman who learned about this. So will you share scarcity and abundance, that mindset, with us, please?
Oh, absolutely. And when I was probably there on the floor in my darkest moment, it was that sense that I had nothing, and scarcity was rampant in every aspect of my life. But when I got up off that floor and I started to really look around, what I discovered is that when I started to look at the world and count the number of things for which I'm grateful, that I start to look at the wonderful things there are in my life, whether it's I have a bed to sleep in, I have food in the refrigerator, I have a roof, the sky is clear and it's a beautiful day outside. But when I start to focus on the abundance of wonderful things that are happening in my life around me, I start to move out of that scarcity mindset. And I become a lot more open to allowing the possibility of more abundance to follow. Wow. It's difficult to see what is around us when we are looking at life from everything is a scarce situation.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't hear, you can't see well, you
No.
can't hear, you're going to stay on the floor, and you're definitely not going to be able to reinvent yourself. Sheri, would you go as far to say you're definitely going to repel the good things that you wish would come? Or none of that is going to be possible because you're coming out of that scarcity mentality.
Well, and you wouldn't necessarily recognize it. It's that kind of thing that when someone offers you something and it's like, oh no, it's not going to work for me. And what you're doing is you are giving the universe, you're giving your higher power, your God, no room to open a door to allow the abundance to flow.
Yes. Just that simple. Just that simple. You're blocking it. No use in being mad at anyone. You're blocking it. Oh my goodness. I hope everybody heard that. That's profound. Simple. Sometimes it's the simple that trips people up. Wow. Yeah. And you found all this information in the midst of grief, scarcity all around. I mean, you're used to a 6-figure, 7-figure salary. Can I go ahead and tell everybody you ended up losing your fiancé, you lost your home. I mean, loss was everywhere around you, but you came to these conclusions. Sheri, we always like to rah on the person that rises from the ashes. Tell us about your ascension, where you are now. You're beautiful. Your energy is at peak performance. Tell us about the days now.
Oh, the days now are, even though I have been in the stay-at-home crowd, have been quite comfortable. I have, since this, over the last several months, been looking at what are the opportunities here. And I have, since I lost everything, I've remarried, and I have a wonderful husband.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That I've been married to for 20 years. And some days, that's, anyone who's been in a relationship knows there are those days. And we own a lovely home. It's comfortable, and we have our needs met. I've had the good fortune. I have left the corporate world. I have several different streams of income that provide me the opportunity, if I so desired, to live a comfortable life. But I feel I have more work yet to do.
Yes.
So I have been reinventing myself once again to share what I see as the road for everyone, essentially, to reinvent themselves. Now, are you going to go from $5 in the bank to billions? Maybe. Overnight? Probably not.
Tell the truth.
Yeah. And, I said there were 2 steps. I said there was the step that you have to look realistically at where you are right here, right now. And then you have to put together a dream. You have to visualize where you want to go. You have to feel it. And then the 3rd step is that you have to develop a roadmap and start to work that plan.
Yes. Yes, those 3 steps, mandatory. No, you can't step from, say, well, I think I'll start on step number 3. No, you need all 3.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And that plan is different for every single person because we all start at different places and we all want to go different places. And some of the most difficult times I've had is when I have allowed someone else to tell me where I wanted to go. And we have to know in the heart of our hearts what we see for ourselves, for our lives. And then it's, what do you need to get there? Do you need to get more training? Do you need to find a mentor or a coach? Do you need to interview people who have done what you want to do? Do you have to practice? Do you have to show up at the gym every day? Do you have to change? What do you have to change in your life?
Mm-hmm. And change. That's the operative word. Mm-hmm. If you're going to get up off the floor, you're going to follow those 3 steps. Those 3 steps entail, and they call upon change, bottom line.
Yes. And it's a lot of stepping outside your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. Stepping outside your comfort zone. And if you're anything like I am and have been, is every now and again you come up against something that you just bounce off of and you can't figure out why you can't move past it. Mm-hmm. That's usually a sign that you need to get some help to support you in seeing what it is and then do some more work.
Oh, wow. Another profound nugget. If you're bumping up against the wall and you can't penetrate, you can't get past whatever that is, get some help instead of circling around and I think I'll bounce up against it one more time. How much time do we waste by doing that when there are people such as yourself, Sheri Berke, who's been there, done that, that can teach you how to change your mind? And what is this thing of reinvention really all about? Those 3 steps rather than circling around, staying on the floor. Oh my God, there's so many places where we can stay stuck versus just getting some help. So, what do you think about outsourcing and that type of thing in business? Once again, we're not supposed to know everything, but what we can't handle, we can outsource and move that along.
Absolutely. It's one of those kinds of things that you have to understand what your zone of genius is. And then you need to focus on how do you let go of, find other talented people to do everything outside your zone of genius. So you've got the time and space to do only the things that you can do, no matter what it is. Some people are genius at selling. Other people are fabulous in all the processes and procedures to make a business run like clockwork. Other people, great marketeers. Mm-hmm. And that's where you need to have a team. You don't need to have full-time help necessarily, not in today's world where we can hire pieces of other people, virtual assistants, consultants for a block of time or a project, social media managers who are skilled in doing those things that when you're starting out you might have to do. I mean, goodness gracious, bookkeepers and accountants and lawyers and all of those, insurance agents, they're all the pieces that you need to have as part of your work community supporting you to be a success. And what's
team? Build your team. You got to build your team.
Yes.
Piece by piece.
Absolutely. Gotcha. And it's creating a team that is on the same page with you, that thinks about what the mission of the business is, and as committed as you are to making it successful.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can hear, we have been blessed with 30 years of experience. This business advisor, Sheri Berke, is just, I couldn't even write down the notes quick enough. As always, everybody's going to have to listen more than one time, because it's one thing for a person to come on and they speak very textbook, but Sheri took us beyond the veil and what it looked like in the beginning. And here we are 20 years later. We hear the wisdom, we hear the business world in working with what's going on in the world today. So Sheri, one final question. What you gave us today was how to run a business from the inside out and give yourself permission to reinvent. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Wow.
Very much so.
How do people work with you? How do they get in contact with you? How do they get a copy of Reinvention Playbook? That's a winner right there.
Well, the Reinvention Playbook is really available through one-on-one coaching, but there are lots of other pieces that are available. I have a gift that I could make available to your listeners called 101 Ways to Save Money. Now, in today's, situation, even using 3 or 4 of them to save some money to either invest in your future or to pay the current bills, whichever it is. Mm-hmm. So, and I can give you the link so your listeners can access that. Or if they choose, they can contact me at Sheri at SCW.com, my email address, and Sheri is Sheri. Right. And then my website, the Reinvention Playbook.
Reinvention Playbook. I'll make sure that all of this information can be found in the show notes. You know money. And like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if in one of those rooms you're just churning out the dollars. You know money. And thank you so much for the gift, the 101 ways to save money. We definitely need that. And I said one final question, for real. This is a final question. When we're looking at our financial climate, and I know that you're not a forecaster or that type of thing, but everybody says we're moving to a depression. We've never seen a pandemic hit us the way it has hit us globally for everybody. What do you foresee is when are we going to come out of this financially? Because, that we hear the numbers, but I always take them with a grain of salt because so many people have been affected and still are. Southern California, now the bars and different places are closed enough for another 3 weeks. They just got open, and the mom and pops were just barely clinging on by their fingertips. What do you foresee us coming out of this? Just Joe Blow public.
Well, let me answer by saying this. There is always opportunity if you look for it. It's kind of like that glass. Is the glass half empty or half full? So how are you looking at it? Is it going to be easy to take advantage of the opportunity? Maybe not, but there are opportunities out there.
That's a mouthful. That's saying something. So in other words, per Sheri Berke, do not get on the floor, balled up in a ball and stay there, because there's always opportunity, no matter what's going to happen in this financial world. So I appreciate you coming. I learned so much. Everybody, you're going to have to listen more than one time. 101 ways to save money. Get her freebie. This information is coming from a lady who knows her stuff. All right. So Sheri, thank you. You're gonna have to come back as time progresses. And I just want people to stay encouraged. Her business, her voice, her conversation is moved past the how-to, and you gave us many how-tos. But I want people to be motivated, and you are a motivational speaker. So I want people to stay encouraged about their financial outlook. Something happens. Sheri Berke said, you can get up. All right.
I would be delighted to do that. And
sounds good.
Thank you so much for having me today. And I appreciate being here and the conversation.
Oh, yeah. Good conversation. You guys should have heard us off the mic. Oh my goodness. It was, and the way she just opened it up about abundance and scarcity. Thank you for elaborating on that. So, well, Margot Levette here. Another excellent episode. I told you. I'll be back next week. We're going to do it again with another expert, another stellar person. I want everybody to stay encouraged as much as possible. All right. It's so easy to lay down, throw your hands up and pull the cover over your head. If you have to do that, but get up quickly. Listen, Sheri is here. She's giving you financial information, but I'll bet you if you get in contact with her and you ask her something about her story, she's going to open up to you. She seems to be just that kind of transparent lady. So, all right, I'll be back next week. Another episode here. Her business, her voice, her conversation. Bye-bye now. I want to thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. Couple of things that I want you to do right now. Go to my website, pick up a copy of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Reinvention, how I went from game show hopping to international show host, author, and speaker in 1 year. Number 2, please freely listen to each and every episode. Share them out with your family, friends, the men in your lives. And then number 3, get in contact with me, one of the experts that have been on the show, because I want to make sure that you reinvent yourself. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode here on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.